Not investing in artificial intelligence. Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. This has come up a lot with people I've talked to about the safety in investing in AI startups, so I wanted to cover it. There have been a bunch of startups in artificial intelligence that have received 10 million or more investment. And the question becomes the tech stack, what the startup is built on, their technology. Do they own it? Does the AI startup own their tech stack? Some do. Right now, most do not. So I want to discuss why that is dangerous if you're an investor and why this is being talked about. There are several reasons why not owning the large language model AI system is a problem. If you're an investor thinking about investing in an AI startup, you have to realize a lot of them do not own their tech stack. The tech stack includes the large language model AI system they're using, like ChatGPT, from OpenAI, any of the other vendors of large language model AI systems. So one of the first problems with these startups is lack of differentiation. When you've got 10 or 20 or 30 or more startups all subscribing to the same large language model, it's kind of hard to differentiate products and services because the core value in a startup of that type is actually coming from the data from that large language model. In other words, the startup has a subscription to a large language model where they get the data. They present it in some unique way to a user, to their customers. But the data is the main value, and they do not own the source of the data. They're subscribing to it. So it's hard to differentiate if everyone's using the same large language model. The data is all coming from the same place. So it's sort of a mess. It's sort of like if Wendy's and Burger King all of a sudden stopped making their own food and switched to making McDonald's food. Then you'd have Wendy's and Burger King and McDonald's and everyone else all making the same food. Their company names are different, but that's not a differentiation. If the source value is the same for all these companies, then it's really hard to say you're different from the other ones, and thus why would anyone buy from you instead of somebody else? So lack of differentiation is a problem if a lot of these AI startups are relying on the same underlying technology, the same large language model. So one way to fix this, though, is something called human in the loop. If the startup relies not just on a large language model subscription, but also a human playing a role in delivering the product or service to their customer, that can be a way to differentiate. As an example, an AI system that requires the assistance of a highly trained and licensed human to deliver the product or service, like a doctor, as an example, in the medical field, these are highly trained people, and because of licensing requirements, large language models are not enough to offer a sellable product or service to the public. The doctor, the human, must be involved. So human in the loop is one way to differentiate. Okay, so that's one issue, the differentiation. If all the AI systems or startups are using the same large language model, it's hard to differentiate. Human in the loop is one way to solve that. Another problem is the rug pull risk, having the rug pulled out from under you. If AI startups are relying on a third-party vendor of a large language model AI system, then there are a bunch of famous rug pull cases in technology. I mean, I've been in technology for a while. I've seen tons of these. And whenever I see a startup that's gone into business relying on a vendor to supply any sizable part of their value chain, I always think to myself, that's not going to last long, and it usually doesn't. As an example, Facebook Parse. Facebook Parse was a backend as a service for mobile application development. Yik Yak was a startup that had raised 75 million in funding that failed. Now they've sort of tried to revive themselves, but they actually failed with 75 million in funding, relying on Facebook Parse. Facebook Parse did a rug pull on anyone using that platform. The Google RSS Reader platform put a lot of reader application startups out of business when Google changed that, when they did the rug pull. Facebook's social gaming platform. Remember what happened to Zynga? When Facebook changed their social gaming platform? Rug pull. That really hurt Zynga. Salesforce Heroku. Heroku was platform as a service for web apps. Salesforce bought Heroku, and started limiting the feature set, and it put a lot of those startups out of business. So I want to take a break here and try to give you insight into motivation. Why would a company like Salesforce or any other large company buy a service that's successful and then shut it down? I mean, we've all seen that over and over and over. There's a company out there that's attracting users, and then a big company will buy them out and then shut them down. There are a bunch of reasons. Some are ego-driven, like the kingmaker ego, where someone at the top of a big successful company sees a challenger and wants to show everyone who's boss and shuts down the product. Another example is if a large company buys an up-and-coming startup, and the people using that startup begin making money, become profitable, then the company that bought them can say to themselves, wait a minute, we are investing our company's resources to help someone else become profitable. That's not a good use of our time. We should spend that time making ourselves profitable, and they will shut down the service that they bought. So Heroku may have been an example of that. And then OpenAI implemented data rate limitations on ChatGPT 3 and 4 that hurt a lot of the chatbot startups. So that's an example of OpenAI actually doing a rug pull already, and it hasn't even been around that long. There are some other rug pull examples. Twilio, which was a messaging API, a lot of messaging startups went under when Twilio was altered. The Stripe payment API, they changed that, put a lot of startups out of business. The Amazon Alexa voice API platform, they changed that, put a lot of startups out of business. So my advice to any software developer who gets enticed by some large company's claim that use our API to build your company, do not do that. Just do not do that. It never works out. Very few companies, because what a lot of these big companies will do is they will use, and I mean that in the pejorative way, use small startup founders to tell the larger company if there's a market opportunity they're missing. So if you see a large company offering a platform as a service or an API to small software developers, they may actually be using someone else to test a market opportunity they're not sure of. We'll attract people to our API, and then we'll cherry pick the ones that are successful and implement them ourselves and shut the API down. So I've seen so many examples, and I hate to sound cynical about this, but I've been in tech for a while, and I've seen a lot of this rug pulling happen. So investing in AI startups without a proprietary large language model, I would say do not do it. So is investing in any AI startup that does not have their own large language model a mistake? Yes, it is, because they can be rug pulled. If you're building on top of any of the large language models out there right now, this means you. If you're investing time and or money, if you're an investor putting money to the rug pull risk is real. Because if you think about it, a large company is, at some point, some manager is going to stand up and say, wait a minute, we have this API or we have this platform we're allowing people to subscribe to that's making them rich. And we don't have control over their company. We don't have control over that profit they're making. And yet we're spending our time to make them profitable. Shouldn't we be spending that time making ourselves profitable? Some manager will try to create a high profile for themselves, maybe, by pointing that out in meetings, and they will shut down the API and they'll put these small startups out of business. So can you build an AI startup that can safely attract investment? And this is a conservative way to invest in AI startups. There is a way to do it. Number one, have an in-house large language model. Number two, proprietary training for that in-house large language model. Number three, using an open source large language model as a starting point for developing the in-house LLM. Because if you think about it, if you have an in-house large language model, the value in that AI system is your training, your specific training that cannot easily be duplicated. If you have an in-house LLM system and it's trained in a proprietary way, which costs a lot of money, that's where the investment comes in. There's a lot of value there if you can attract a customer base and you own the tech stack. You own the tech stack because the large language model AI is in-house. You're not subscribing to somebody else's large language model. Attracting investment for training that increases the value of your startup is worthwhile. It's meaningful to investors to hear we have our own in-house LLM. We have our own proprietary training. We're seeking investment to improve and increase the training, the specific training for our system that is unique, defensible, and in-house, and we are not subject to being rug pulled by anyone because we developed everything in-house. Then you have a shot at having an investment opportunity. But if you're thinking about investing in an AI startup that does not have its own large language model, you have lack of differentiation and you have the rug pull risk. And this by far is the worst of those, because creating a company and then finding that you've been able to make it successful, and then having the LLM that you're subscribing to rug pull you, talk about devastating. Years of work lost. So you got suckered into using somebody else's API. And so if you're smart about this, I just want to be totally blunt about this. If you're smart about this, the current AI LLM ecosystem, you will say, I am never, ever going to create a startup that relies on a third-party vendor large language model. I don't care how enticed, I don't care if they give it for free and provide the skill in my company to build it. I'm not going to waste time on that. You're better off in technology seeking opportunities where you own your tech stack. I mean, the whole tech stack. You're not relying on third-party vendors. Now, I want to differentiate some third-party vendors like Oracle. If you're relying on a third-party database or Amazon Web Services, that's different, okay? Because the data still comes from you. But with an AI system, the data is coming from, not from you, it's coming from the large language model, and you don't own it if you're subscribing to one of these LLMs. There are some platforms out there that are safe to use, to subscribe to, because you're using them to store data, to organize your data, but you are putting the data into that system, right? You're not relying on data coming from that system. Artificial intelligence is different. All the value is in the data that's coming from that AI system. You're much better off starting with your own LLM in-house and raising investment for proprietary training of a large language model that you own. If you don't do that, the rug pull risk you face is it's just extreme. I mean, you're just a sitting duck. So I don't recommend that. And this has come up. A lot of people have mentioned this. They said, wait a minute, all these AI startups are relying on some third-party vendors to provide the large language model. Isn't the data going to be all the same going to all these startups? And what if the large language model vendor like OpenAI does a rug pull, like rate limitations? They've already done it. So anyways, take that to heart. This is from an investor perspective. If you're thinking about investing, just take care that if you're going to spend a lot of money on an AI startup, they own their own tech stack. They own an in-house proprietary LLM, and they're raising money maybe for training, right? And or they have human in the loop. And if you're developing an AI startup, I do not recommend being a subscriber to one of the large language model vendors like OpenAI. If you have any questions about this, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. If I missed anything, put that in the comments. I'd be more than happy to hear that. And I really want to thank everyone for watching, and have a great day.